Which mic is live?
That one.
This one?
Yep.
I'm live? You can hear me? Just a little bit. It doesn't sound like it's projecting.
Talk a little closer.
Talk closer. Now it's working? Okay. Very sensitive. Good morning. So nice to see you. It's so hard to break up the conversation. I love because I get to catch up with all of you and give hugs and all of that. So lovely to see you. I'm Jennifer Barahona. For those I haven't had the chance to meet, I'm the CEO of Norwalk ACTS, and thrilled to be back for our September convening. So I think we can all agree that there's just no substitute for the in-person meetings. That is just a whole nother level when we can be together, and I love it and hope you will continue to come this half hour before we start the official program each time in order to kind of network and catch up with old friends. So I love the fall. I love the September convening because it feels like it's a renewal, a new start for those who are parents or caregivers who have children back in school. It's just really nice, at least for me anyway, to have them back into the routine, which is just a fresh beginning for everybody. So I hope those transitions, whether your kids are kindergartners or off to college or whatever they might be, are going smoothly. I want to begin by acknowledging some of our elected officials who have joined us this morning. I see so far council members Greg Burnett and Nicole Ayers, and also former Mayor Knopf. Really lovely to see you. Thank you for being here. And speaking of elected officials, I want everyone to pay attention to our October newsletter. We will be featuring some information on the upcoming elections, of course, in November. It is super important that we are all engaged. One of my biggest frustrations is when people don't pay attention to local elections. You know, it's just a presidential, when in fact, as I'm preaching to the choir here, most of you know the local elections are what influences our communities often the most, and so it's super important that we have an educated electorate and that each one of you and the people that you engage with are really supporting candidates who align with your values and those of the people that you work with. So keep an eye out for that. If you have questions, Brandon Hayden is our policy director in the back of the room, waving, so touch base with him if you have election-related questions. And in December, we will have our policy convening and our delegation, whomever they may be. We have several local elections, statewide elections, and seats that will be changing. So join us, make sure you join us for that, and we'll have the date up at the end. There's obviously always heartbreak in our world, and I want to take this moment to celebrate some of the really wonderful things, and congratulations are in order for several people, including Sarah Rendon Garcia, one of the Norwalk ACTS board members, Kirk Wesley. I don't know if Kirk is here. He was scheduled to be here, but he was our speaker in June. He and his wife, Erica Stanley Wesley, and council member Diana Revolus all gave birth to daughters over the summer. So yay to them. More strong women to come and support our work in the future. I love it. Also, congratulations to Namie Moise Young, who was married a little over a week ago. And to Ray Leslie on our backbone team, who was engaged not too long ago. We also have some exciting additions to our backbone team, and I'm going to start with welcoming Rhea Henry up to introduce herself. Rhea is our new Workforce Development Coordinator and started on September 1st, and she is working in the College and Workforce Readiness Initiative that we are just launching, or have just launched with the city. So Rhea, do you want to come up and share your
Hi everyone, good morning. As Jennifer mentioned, my name is Rhea Henry. I am the new Workforce Development Coordinator here at Norwalk ACTS. Very happy to be here, very happy to be with you all. Can you hear? I'm sorry. Is it this one?
As close as you can.
Hello?
That's better.
Okay,
Super
sorry.
close to it.
Yes, I'm Rhea Henry, the new Workforce Development Coordinator here at Norwalk ACTS. I'm very happy to be here. Prior to joining the team, I've worked in workforce development and youth development programming in the nonprofit space. So I'm just here and excited to be supporting developing centralized workforce infrastructure here in Norwalk. If anyone here is involved in the workforce sphere, please feel free to introduce yourself. I would love to connect. If you are not involved in the workforce space, please also introduce yourself. I would love to connect. But thank you. Thank you, Jennifer.
We also had the unique opportunity through some grants locally to hire 4 community advocates, early childhood advocates. This is through a grant we have received from one Sparkler and one the Early Childhood Funders Collaborative. Thanks, Mary Peniston, who's here from that organization. And so we have onboarded, and MJ, where's MJ on our team, has done a really great job in recruiting and hiring and onboarding these 4 advocates who will be working on the developmental, 5 developmental stage domains, and really getting the word out and encouraging parents to use the Sparkler app and the Ages and Stages ASQ questionnaire as part of our strategies in the early childhood space. So we have just last Monday, I guess it was, officially Jennifer Murray Mayhew, Maria Guzman, Eve St. Surin, who's over here. Eve, hello. And then Sandra Pinda, and they're going to be working very closely with Maria Cloak, who also, I think I saw Maria, didn't I? Oh, there's Maria, and also congratulations to Maria, who also gave birth in the spring to a baby girl. So lots of celebrations. So we're really excited about that work as well. So I'm going to turn it over now to Jesse and have him walk through, I feel like we should do a drum roll, Norwalk ACTS' new strategic plan. For those of you who have been with the Norwalk ACTS partnership for a while, I hope you will see what we have been working on with all of you for a very long time. This is really the first time Norwalk ACTS has put together a plan like this. And this was not, the backbone team behind closed doors putting together some plan. This was actually probably a year in the making of meetings with all of you, with initiatives, with the board, the implementation team, working groups, feedback. This is why it took so long, because this wasn't done in isolation. You're all our Norwalk ACTS. There is a backbone team that supports all of you, but we are not Norwalk ACTS, a standalone organization that just does our thing. We are doing it in support and service of the community, which you all represent, and so we are very grateful for your support, your patience as we worked through this very complex plan, and a huge shout out and kudos to the backbone team, and particularly Jesse for shepherding us through this process. So I will come back up at the end and conclude, but I'm turning it over to Jesse and then Danique for the rest of the time.
Thank you. So there's some distracting music in the background. We're going to close the gate. We're not locking you in. There's an exit door right around the other corner, so don't get freaked out. And we'll try to open it back. Oh, sweet. Never mind. We're not locking you in here. You can leave. So I'm just going to give a quick overview of the agenda for today. So we'll be covering the strategic plan and just giving a preview of it. Later today, or tomorrow, you'll get an email with the strategic plan that you can kind of dive deeper in on your own. From 9:30 to 10 o'clock, we have an equity panel. We'll then take a quick 5-minute break, and then we'll come back for some table discussions and to close out at 11 o'clock. So before I begin with the plan, I just kind of want to review some key terms and kind of the mission and vision of Norwalk ACTS. And if for those who have been here before, you'll know that we redesigned our mission and vision last year, this time, and released that. And that was really the first step of the strategic planning process, is redesigning that. So our mission is to collectively transform systems by ensuring that resources, policies, practices, and power structures actively dismantle racism and drive equitable outcomes for every Norwalk child and young person. There's a lot of terms in that, and we actually have a glossary of terms, and if you didn't get one, you can get one at the break in the back, to kind of see how we define some of those terms within that. Our vision is that Norwalk is a connected and equitable community where every child and young person thrives academically, physically, and social-emotionally from cradle to career. So we are a collective impact group, but we are also a partnership of cross-sector members and community members that come together to collectively problem solve around issues that relate to children and youth. Sometimes people think that Norwalk ACTS is a organization, a 501c3, and that we're the staff of it and we're driving the work. But our work is really to support this partnership here in Norwalk and supporting all Norwalk youth and children. And in thinking about changing big systems, we have to work collaboratively. And so our work as a staff is a backbone team that works to support the partnership, but it's really the work is all about everyone in here owning the work and having a role to play in this big system change work. For this strategic plan, I just want to acknowledge that I'm simply a spokesperson for some of these action plans. I'm not the creator of them. These were created by initiative leadership teams, and we gathered input from members over the last several months. We also want to acknowledge that this action planning process is iterative. It's fluid, it's going to continue to evolve, and there'll be changes in language, and we'll get more narrowed in focus as time evolves. And in a year from now, our goal is to release an impact report that will show kind of how are we doing on the goals that we set out, what are some of the performance measures that we've accomplished, and by then we'll hopefully plan to set some actual targets, when appropriate, for community level outcome indicators after this first year. A couple more notes before I dive in. We're gonna lock you in for a quick moment. Music is back. But don't worry, door right around the corner. So before we kind of get, before I officially start going through the action plans, I just want to note that you're going to be seeing the most external facing plan. So it's a little bit high level, and I do want to let you know that there are more detailed action plans with more nuances, with a factor analysis and performance measures and strategies and all that other stuff. And that's kind of like a snapshot of what this looks like. But what we're going to go over today is the most external, public-facing version that just keeps everything high level. And just know that there are more up-to-date current plans throughout this year. And if you're ever interested in those, we're happy to send them. Just let us know. So this past June, we articulated this big bet. And so our big bet is basically to achieve our vision that Norwalk is a connected and equitable community where all children and youth thrive from cradle to career. Our big bet is that over the next 3 years, we will maintain a disciplined focus on specific community level outcomes and build the capacity of Norwalk ACTS members and partners to implement targeted strategies within the cornerstones of our work. So I'll break down this graphic here because there's a lot going on. So up top, you'll see 4 initiatives. Our early childhood initiative, our social emotional health, out of school time, and college and workforce readiness. And can I just get like a quick kind of set of hands? If you are in any way connected to the early childhood initiative, can you raise your hand for a quick moment? If you are in any way connected to our social emotional health initiative, can you raise your hand for a moment? Out of school time and college and workforce readiness. Awesome. So good set of hands for each initiative, which is really great. I noticed the most amount of hands for early childhood, and that's because that is our kind of earliest work and kind of the furthest along this continuum of work. And so I just want to acknowledge that each initiative is at its own phase and will continue to evolve, and the level of backbone support changes as it results. So you see our 4 initiatives above, right? The initiatives are where the work happens. It consists of cross-sector partners and members working together to improve outcomes. And then our work as a backbone team is to support these initiatives through our cornerstones, which is what we introduced about 2 years ago. And our 4 cornerstones are data, social justice and racial equity, community engagement, and policy and advocacy. Our work as a backbone is to really make sure that these cornerstones are included in the initiatives and that we're building the capacity of these cornerstones and these value statements that you see under them over the year. So we'll talk a little bit more in detail about those cornerstones and the initiatives, but this is just a high-level overview of how we see ourselves as a backbone staff supporting this partnership, trying to accomplish these outcomes. Okay, so early childhood initiative is broken up into 2 working groups. I'm not going to read word for word everything on this action plan, and as I said earlier, you're going to see this in your inbox later where you can kind of start to dive into details. But the Early Childhood Initiative is broken into 2 working groups. One is focused on the birth to age 3 developmental growth, and the second one is focused on pre-K to kindergarten transition. So with the birth to age 3, this is one of the initiatives that's furthest along, and it's really about building the 5 domains of development and developmental readiness with the work as measured by the Ages and Stages questionnaire, which is completed by parents and caregivers. So our work is not only to make sure that more children, 0 to 3, are getting screened via this ASQ, but that they're also growing in the 5 domains from 0 to 3, and that we're actively engaging parents in this process and making sure they're aware and informed of these different stages and empowered to make the choices that are best for their children's needs. So you can see this graph here. It's really about, while we've seen growth in the 5 domains, there's still a lot of room to grow in this area, and we also want to increase the number of screenings that are happening. So one day that all children and youth are screened and on track to the 5 domains. The pre-K to kindergarten transition is really about, you're seeing different early childhood systems from a variety of different providers funneling into kindergarten at Norwalk Public Schools. And so this is a key transition point where you have a lot of different systems kind of funneling into one, and how can we better streamline and support kindergarten teachers and the alignment and connection with the early childhood providers to making sure that we're all using the same language, the same data, and that working together to make sure that parents are having an easy transition and that their children are having a fluid transition from pre-K to kindergarten. And so just to kind of highlight some of the data points here, if you look furthest to the right, as measured by this kindergarten entry inventory, which is completed by kindergarten teachers at the beginning of the year, data reveals that and this is only for one assessment, but there's other data that reveals that there's lower preschool attendance, literacy rates, developmental growth, and kindergarten entry inventory results for the most recent class of 2034. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done in this area in supporting our children throughout this transition. So the Social Emotional Health and Out of School Time Initiative are 2 different initiatives that at the moment we are combining the action plans because they're super connected in terms of the goals and objectives and have a lot of shared focus. So recent data shows that Norwalk youth and children are experiencing depression, suicidal ideation, and isolation with limited opportunity to connect. And as you can see in this recent data here, which is from the Norwalk Youth Survey data, an average of 39%, which is 991 students of Norwalk Public School students, 7th through 12th grades, reported that they felt sadness or hopelessness almost every day for a 2-week period that stopped them from doing usual activities. And we're seeing this higher level of depression and sadness and suicidal ideation among self-reported subgroups, especially as it relates to gender and sexual identity. So our work here is really a community-wide initiative to increase mental health literacy and awareness throughout Norwalk, and to build and reinforce the skills of youth-serving adults and community-based organizations and providers through a variety of specific trainings. And it's really about increasing the access and opportunities that youth have here in Norwalk. And we're lucky, you'll see other updates throughout our newsletter, but there is a new youth survey happening this fall that will be able to be really informative to this work that's happening in Norwalk Public Schools. So last is the College of Workforce Readiness Initiative, which is our newest initiative. You just met Rhea, she started 2 weeks ago. And this is a true partnership with the City of Norwalk that we're very grateful for, but also bringing in some key stakeholders that are involved in anchor institutions that are tied to College of Workforce Readiness. So when we look at the data points here, there's kind of two key data points. One is around ALICE population. That stands for asset limited, income constrained, employed individuals. So these are folks that are above the poverty level, but still not making enough to cover the cost of living based here in Norwalk. And so when we add the poverty level and the level of individuals who qualify under this ALICE term, 43% of households here in Norwalk are part of this ALICE population. And then when we look at the percentage of Norwalk Public School students that are not attending a 2 or 4 year degree college, 30% over the last 4 years did not enroll into these programs. And that's where we lose the data about what happens to our graduates that are graduating that aren't pursuing, for whatever reason, 2 or 4 year degree school. And as we look at and break it down by demographics, we see that this is an equity issue with a large proportion of these students being students of color. So our goals here in the College and Workforce Readiness Initiative is to develop a Norwalk Workforce Development Committee that's both focused not just on youth and these 18-year-olds that are graduating, but also on all residents, and making sure that we're connecting the different social service providers, workforce development trainers, higher education institutions, and a lot of other stakeholders that are connected to this work through this Workforce Development Committee, making sure folks are connected, aligned, and that we're collectively working together to solve this issue here in Norwalk. And then the second piece of this is really to increase the access of trainings and opportunities here for Norwalk residents and youth. So that work is our newest work, and we're super excited that Rhea is joining us for that, and excited to get this Norwalk Workforce Development Committee started in the next few months. So I went through those pretty quickly, and you'll have more time to dive deeper into all these pieces later on, but we're really excited about this work that's starting, and really grateful for the different leadership teams that have met countless hours over this summer, and different folks that provided feedback. Super grateful for that. And as I mentioned, these plans will continue to evolve and grow, and we're excited to get some kind of dates on the calendar for initiative meetings to start implementation. So the next piece, which I'm going to call up our Backbone staff to kind of cover, are Cornerstone priorities. And that's the work that we as a Backbone team are working on to build capacity in our partners and members, and that we feel that these cornerstones are the key ingredients to moving the needle on community level changes. And so we're going to be focusing on these specific priorities over the next 3 years within each cornerstone to support the initiatives and the members and the partnership. I will, our first employee of Norwalk ACTS, Paula, is not with us today. She's having a slow recovery of COVID and is home, I think, watching this right now, but if you know Paula, you know she'd really want to be here. So I'm going to summarize the data cornerstone priorities, and then we'll have the rest of the team come up for the others. So for data, well, data has definitely evolved from where we once were, and we're really excited about the capacity that the school district at Norwalk Public Schools has done to build a data team over the past few years. And so our work is really about how do we inform the community about how we're moving the needle on these community level outcomes through these different initiatives that you just saw. And we're also talking about some type of public facing data. So there's data that supports the initiatives, and then there's data that the community just needs to know, and that can spark other ideas and other collective opportunities. And so our data convening, which is in March, will be kind of showcasing some of the state of Norwalk and the state of the child in Norwalk around a variety of different indicators. The second piece is really working in collaboration with some of the key data entities here in Norwalk through a Norwalk Data Governance Committee in partnership with the school district to focus on the sustainable early childhood to post-high school kind of longitudinal data pipeline. So we'll hear next from Danique and MJ on social justice and equity and community engagement, and then we'll hear from Brandon on policy and advocacy.
Good morning, everyone. So great to see a full room of community members. I am MJ Corona, I'm manager of community engagement. I'm really excited to be here. So as you see from our priorities up there, the first one is increase the number of community advocates and community members who are representative of our Norwalk population. And we really want to make sure that they're participating and also leading in the initiatives. And one example that Jennifer earlier had introduced our new early childhood community advocates, and there are a couple here. I think Eve and Maria are here. But we really want to make sure that their work is aligned with the early childhood initiative action steps, and making sure that everything we're doing is based on the initiative goals. But also, we want to make sure that we're listening to parents and community advocates about developmental domains and what's happening within the community to guide our work. The second priority is strengthen relationships between prospective, new, and current members, all of you that are here. So really intentionally reach out to community members and find out what they're interested in doing. I have found in community work, if basically for my own volunteer work, you need to be passionate about what you're doing. So it's really listening to what other community members want to do within Norwalk and how we can support each other. And part of that also is listening to what learning opportunities they're interested in. And that actually ties into Denique's social justice and racial equity.
Good morning, everybody. So to dovetail with MJ, our social justice and equity work through the engagement and incorporation of equity really means that our priorities will effectively facilitate two-way communication with partners in the community. So where community engagement kind of leaves off is where we begin. So within the initiatives, we want to make sure that community is at the table, and that any learning opportunities that are facilitated through the initiatives are reflective and responsive to the inequities that exist within our community. Initiative meetings will be designed with intentional storytelling opportunities so that system providers can continually learn and center the needs of Norwalk children, youth, and families within their work. And then Norwalk ACTS will act as an accountability partner so that the community is respected, welcomed, and understood through this process. So over the course of time, what we're really looking to do is to continue to have the community really be able to talk to what their needs are, and for the initiatives to really evolve and change based on those needs.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry if my voice cuts in and out. I've been up since like 3:30 a.m. I think we all know last night it was really rough here. The thunderstorms were wild. But here we go. My name is Brandon Hayden. I am the policy director for the Connecticut Cradle to Career Coalition. And our advocacy priorities for the year are to develop tools and resources to help Norwalk ACTS members use their voice in advocating for policy change at the local, state, and federal level when it comes to our initiatives of early childhood, college and workforce readiness, and social emotional health. We'll continue to connect Norwalk voices to policymakers. And as part of the Connecticut Cradle to Career Coalition, which includes our sister partnerships in Stamford, Bridgeport, and Waterbury. And thank you to Edith and Yolan for attending. They're over there. Do you want to raise your hands really quickly? Hi. They're from Stamford Cradle to Career. And we will continue to build a strong coalition to advocate for equitable policies and replicate successful models across the state. And I look forward to working with you all in the next coming months. And as Jennifer said before, we have a really important election coming up in November, and I look forward to sharing more information with you all about that. And I hope that you watch the debates that are going on for our congressionals. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Jesse.
Can I actually turn it over to Jennifer to close it out? But one last thing I do want to say before it goes to Jennifer is just, I hope as you kind of see this different plan, that there's a piece of ownership that belongs to everyone here in this room around this plan. And so as we kind of continue to build it out and implement it in year one, please, come to initiative meetings, get connected, and the goal is for all of us here to own this plan together.
Oh, I meant at the end.
Oh.
That's all right. That's all right. So, I missed a slide early, sorry. So thank you, Jesse, and to the team. It's a really proud moment for Norwalk ACTS. It's, when I think of where I stood my first convening 3 years ago to where we are now, it's pretty remarkable. And to have a team of now 11 and doing all this work is just, it reflects all of you and the hard work we do and the recognition of our national partners and local investors who have seen what goes on in Norwalk and wants to see more of it. So kudos to all of you, and just a heartfelt thanks from me to my backbone team. So we are going to transition now to the next part of the agenda, which includes Denise coming up to give a bit of a more in-depth look at our social justice and race equity work, and we're really excited to hear from members of our community. We don't want to just be backbone team up here each convening talking, but really hear from all of you about the good work you're doing, and never lose sight of what grounds us in this work, which is what I said in my very first convening when I came back, which was Norwalk ACTS came together around disproportionality data in students who are underrepresented or students who are overrepresented in expulsion and school discipline. And so that's what grounds our work, and we can't only pay attention to this when there is a police shooting or something happening that sparks outrage, that we have to continue to be outraged by the inequities that exist within our community. And so this morning really grounds us in reminding us about all of that and how we need to continue to center this in all of our conversations and all of the data that we look at all the time. So, Danique, over to you.
So for someone to give me a mic for a duration of time, watch out. Watch out. I might just take it off. This is good? This is good. All right. Okay. So thank you for that wonderful lead-in, Jennifer. So really happy to be able to share space, not only with all of you, but especially with our panelists. So I don't know if our panelists would like to come up as I kind of start us off and really making sure that we're grounded in some terms. Emily is also coming around. As Jesse had already mentioned, we have a glossary of terms. So really just wanting to ground the next bit of our conversation and dialogue together in 3 definitions and making sure that we're on the same page. So based on the glossary in front of you as well as what's on screen, I'm going to just define three terms. So really, when we're talking about equity, what are we talking about? And we're talking about the quality of being fair and impartial. Race equity, the process of eliminating racial disparities and improving outcomes for everyone. That is definitely reflected within our new mission and vision, and that is the intentional and continual, kind of similar to Jennifer's talking points of changing policies, practices, systems, and structures by prioritizing measurable change in the lives of people of color. And throughout kind of our conversation a little later on, as well as through our panelists, we'll be talking a lot more about what that looks like in action. And then finally, social justice. So what is that? So it's the view that everyone deserves equal economic, political, social rights, and opportunities. So this is really going to be a conversation, folks. So we are going to ask for all of our panelists to come up so we can start this dialogue. I know. I know, it is a race. So as everyone is kind of gathering and finding their place, and I'm going to sit. So initially, it was that I was going to be at the podium. I'm like, oh no, I don't want to be at the podium. I'm going to sit down with the group. But I think that what we're really trying to do with having this panel is to really be able to go inward and to think about what are the places, where are examples within our network of folks who are doing this work. And we know that many, even out in the audience, are as well. So really looking forward for this to be the beginning conversation of really what does race equity and social justice work look like within the Norwalk ACTS partnership, and for this to be this initial conversation to get us there. Some other pieces too, deep appreciation to our equity core team and their guidance with the panelist questions, and really being able to provide guidance to this portion of the discussion. And some other pieces, just as I think we've gone on our own equity journey over the past 2 years, it's just recognizing that equity is both a process, or as we will probably be calling it, a journey, as well as an outcome. So before we kind of start this conversation, much thanks to our panelists for being a part of this. And really looking forward for this to be not only an interchange, but also an opportunity for us to really be able to see within the network what are some of the pieces that we are highlighting, what are maybe areas of weakness that we'd like to see improvement on. But I hope that also a goal for all of us is for us to, especially within kind of the tabletop discussion that will happen after the break, is to really identify someone that you don't know. So like typically we sit in this room and we're with friends, but really looking for this to be a stretch opportunity for all of us to find someone that you may not necessarily know and to continue this conversation. And then also really goal 2 is really thinking about what are the actions that you would like to take based on this discussion as well as the discussion that we'll have together. So with that, I will welcome our panel and get this conversation going. So I think that I'll have everyone introduce themselves and kind of their role, and then we'll start with the questions. It really is a dialogue, folks. Everyone's like, okay, well, is everyone going to answer the same question? And I think that anything from your lived experience of doing this work that you think would be helpful to the network, that we are all here to see here. So with that, I will start with introductions. There's a mic, and then I'll give this.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for putting this together and asking me to be a part of this. My name is Prema Winn. I'm the Executive Director of the Odyssey Family Executive Center of South Norwalk. We are located within the Maritime Odyssey Preschool, and they are a very close partner of ours in the work that we do, and look forward to speaking with you as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Cadence Pentheny. I use they, them pronouns. I am the community educator at Triangle, at Triangle Community Center. If any folks know, we are an LGBTQ+ focused nonprofit right here in Norwalk. We're literally just down the street in the same little plaza as Dunkin' Donuts there. So I'm really excited to be here and be part of this conversation.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. And just to be very vulnerable, very open. I do not like public speaking, so put that out there. You guys can be my support system. So my name is Lorraine Reid-James. I am the Coordinated Access Network Weekend Manager for Minors at FCA. I've been with FCA for quite some time, having different roles. Right now, my role primarily is looking at minors who are experiencing homelessness and housing instability.
Good morning. I'm Rob Cashel, President and CEO of Family and Children's Agency. It's great to be here and part of this. And by the way, I think Lorraine is terrific.
Good morning. I'm Bob Giolitto. I'm an original member of the Race and Social Justice Coalition of St. Paul's on the Green. We started out 6 years ago by reading books. Thank you.
So if my mother were here, she'd say, Denise, you don't need a mic. But for Facebook, we'll use a mic. So although this conversation will be centered on integrating and centering equity within groups and organizations locally, obviously we bring ourselves to everything that we do. So the first initial question for the panel is kind of how do you define race equity, and how do you also define social justice?
I don't know if anyone would like to kind of kick us off. I think racial equity and social justice to me is centered around the action around that. I think, in these recent years, prior to the pandemic, certainly since, and, kind of the violence and, turmoil that we've experienced these past few years has certainly spurred more attention to that and wanting to have more conversations. Yeah. People know me here know that I'm a little speaker, so I need that. Thank you. It has certainly spurred more conversations around these issues, which are certainly needed. I think everyone has opportunities to educate themselves around this work. But for me, it's really about the action in it and kind of, making the most of the time and this moment that we have in this country and internationally to create that change now that eyes are opening. And I also see it as being a courageous act and something that all of us, no matter your background, racial ethnicity, it's about taking those steps and being courageous to step out and speak for others, speak for yourself, and to be confident in your convictions and not letting anyone steer you otherwise.
Even though, again, my work focuses on sexual and gender justice, homophobia, transphobia, the gender binary, all of that stuff would not exist without white supremacy. That is how that works. There's a long history of colonization, genocide, enslavement, and it is all tied in together. It's so important that we acknowledge that as part of this conversation. Particularly as a white person and a community educator, a lot of the times it allows me to kind of sneak into spaces and start talking to other white people about race because they don't think I'm going to bring in that as part of the conversation. And I had mentors who taught me how to do that and really showed me how that was so important. Deeply being committed to intersectionality and how these things are all intertwined. I think to me that is what I am always trying to bring and think about in all of these conversations. Again, people don't always think that is what I'm going to be bringing in, but I start every training I lead, even if it's on foundations of gender and sexuality, off with this idea of intersectionality. We are not doing the work right or at all, I believe, if we're not making that a part of the conversation.
I think for me personally, I think conversations of race and equity happens a lot, and I think those who are just coming new to the conversation are kind of being highlighted by what the conversations that are happening. But I think in certain sectors, certain groups, these conversations have been going on for a very long time. Those who are truly affected by this. So for me, it's making sure that those who are affected are centered and their voices are highlighted in the conversation. Because oftentimes, those who are truly affected by what's happening, they're not being heard. So I think for me, the conversations are happening in silos, but making sure that those who need to have a seat at the table have that seat at the table and effectively be heard and have leadership roles as well in policy changes and in the structural changes that are happening.
Okay, this one works. So obviously definitions are important, and I know Denise shared some definitions that I would certainly support. Process is important, but for me, I think where the rubber meets the road is actions that lead to measurable outcomes. So that after a period of time, you can look back and you can really see that there are things that have truly changed. Without that, I think you're kind of limited in terms of this focus on diversity. So measurable outcomes, I would think is critical.
So we all know the buzzwords, housing, education, jobs, etc. Our third meeting, and we meet every Wednesday. We don't meet 2 Wednesdays a year and that's it. And we've been in existence for 6 years. Our third meeting one of our members who is black, a leader in our congregation and a leader in his community, told us that there wasn't a day that he walked out of his house without some sort of fear. And I blurted out, I don't know that. And he pointed a finger at me and he said, no, you don't, and you never will. You can probably hear it in my voice, I'm still angry about that. I think that's the core. I found out that night that I needed to know what I didn't know. And that's white people. Because black people all know it. One of the, in the preschool part of the presentation earlier, it had about kids who educating those kids and making sure they have opportunities. And I just wonder when a kid going into kindergarten is subjected to racial prejudice and hate. That kid's parents, by this point, know how to handle it. But what kind of trauma are those kids going through that will last the rest of their life? Therefore, at 70 years old, every time this black man walks out of his house, he's in some sort of fear. And I think that's one of the keys.
Thank you for that, Bob. And I think that also kind of dovetails nicely with kind of the next question. That obviously, even from what you all are already raising, it's talking about actions leading to outcomes, and for that to be the change, really recognizing intersectionality within all of this, because they all are intertwined. The conversations that we have to have with each other, whether it's white people to white people, people of color have had these conversations over generations, but really making sure that we are centering this towards action. So, other plug for goal 2 for all of us is really to, seriously consider what are the actions that you personally will take after this conversation as we continue. Next question. All right. So Bob kind of alluded to it with kind of the beginning of his comments, but I think also just a question for all of you is like, how did your race equity work begin? And I think that especially since we do have those amongst the panel that are either leading the work on behalf of an organization or a group, or co-leading on behalf of a group, really what work did you personally have to do, and what are you doing to prioritize equity?
So for us at SCA, our work really began tragically. In 2013, you all know Prema Martin happened. And at the time, I was employed in the foster care department. And so we were having these conversations among ourselves, in siloed conversations, right? With certain social workers were having conversations among themselves based on their experience and based on their output. But we, as a department as a whole, weren't having the collective conversation. And I think out of necessity, we decided that we needed to have that conversation because we are essentially social workers to youth that look like Trayvon Martin, that want to have interactions that are similar to what he experienced. So we need to be open and be comfortable to be uncomfortable, right? That's the trigger thing that we all are saying now. So it started there, and that kind of propelled us to have this conversation among departments to know now we're an organization where we have a social justice work group, where we have centered the conversation not only around racial equity, but systematic changes and things like that. And so within our social justice work group, we have held focus groups amongst our staff to see what are the issues that are truly affecting our community, both internally and externally, and what are some of the focus that we want to do to make systemic changes within our organization. And what has really come out of those focus groups are 3 really core areas, which is some of the things that we currently are working on, immigration issues, because one of the things that we noticed that those are the clientele that we are having to provide support for within our organization. Also, training. Amongst our staff, we recognize that we need to be educated not only on our jobs, but on things that are affecting our clients as well. And the third is connectivity. We want to feel connected. In this work, it's important to feel connected because we all have different experiences. We all come from different points of view. So in order to feel connected in the work, we need to be intentional about that. Those are some of the things that we've actively been working on at SCA.
So I think it's a natural follow for me to follow Lorraine, because another piece that we focused on, and sadly it was also triggered, this intensive work by another incident, and that was the murder of George Floyd. And as we moved into the fall, we were very fortunate of that year, which was 2020. We were very fortunate that one of our primary funders, Lone Pine Foundation, underwrote a training for its grantee organizations, and that included Family and Children's Agency, and included family centers, DOMAS, person to person, and all our kin. We're all part of a cohort that worked with an organization that many in this room know, called Partners, and it was a 9-month process. Each organization at the board level with some senior management involved created an equity core team. And these equity core teams engaged in a series of trainings with Jamal. But more important to the actual trainings with Jamal was the work in between the meetings, because it was an opportunity for this smaller group of about 8 or 9 board members to really dig into the issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And some of the insights and eye-opening experiences of some of these board members who primarily were white very much mirror what you had talked about, where people were just blown away with what they didn't know and what they still needed to know. Moving forward, this work with the equity team and Jamal Jimerson led to an action plan the following spring. And the action plan was very specific. It included the establishment of a why statement. Almost all the organizations that entered into this training were focused on the issue of a lack of diversity on their boards of directors. And this is not unique to the 5-6 agencies that were there, but it clearly is an issue. Our board has been almost totally white, very little diversity. Well-meaning board members who have said for years and years and years that we need to diversify, but it doesn't really happen. So this training really, I think, created a process, created a why statement that established why are we doing this, because it's all well and good to say you want to diversify your board, but what are you diversifying your board? What's the purpose? And the equity core team worked very hard on this and really came to a very succinct why statement that really said it will strengthen not only the board in terms of new perspectives, new experiences, but it will very much improve the work of the agency, because we're a service agency. So with that in mind and a why statement in place, we came up with an action plan. It included the issue of moving towards a more diverse board. It also included a focus on the development of new board policies, and those policies to be embedded in our bylaws. Because the feeling was it's not enough to do the work and then say it's all well and good and move on to something else. It really needs to be incorporated into the organization going forward, so that if the current board and the current CEO aren't there, it is already embedded in the organization, in our policies, and in our bylaws. So the core equity team also felt it was very important to interface with, and we've had a series of meetings with the staff-driven social justice work group. That has been fabulous, and again, I think it's helped the board to have a better understanding from the staff's perspective, this all important issue. Inclusivity, very important piece that they focus in on, because if you're gonna bring in people on the board who may not look like the people who are currently on the board and maybe don't have the same experiences, you take a risk that in a year or so, some of those people are gonna move on. So how do you include people in a way that they feel part of the organization at the board level? A very strong mentoring program was established for all new board members, but clearly it was driven by the idea that people of diverse backgrounds particularly need an opportunity to feel more included in the process. So I mentioned before outcomes. In 2020, our board was 6% of board members who are from diverse backgrounds. In 2022, we're at 20%. So in about 18 months, we've made some real headway. Board policies are in place. Bylaws are going this week to the board to be revised with a very strong diversity policy statement. So those are some of the things we've done at FCA at the board level.
So talk about actions turning into outcomes stuff. Bob, were you going to mention something else about equity?
We were fortunate in that it's either the third or fourth book that we read was William Barber's The Third Reconstruction. And his last chapter has 14 points about how to get active. And it became our blueprint. The first thing he said was get educated, which we were in the process of doing. And the second thing, or later on what he said was, now you can act now that you're educated. And so, I raised my kids to be colorblind. Well, Lorraine is black, and I'm white, and why should my kids be blind for that? The things that you find out, and Barbara coined the phrase, know what you don't know. And the other thing that he instructed us was get involved at the grassroots. So we have a tutoring program for refugee kids at the high school. We haven't been able to meet with them for 2 years, but there are 87 kids there now. We don't meet with them, but we get them supplies and that sort of thing. We're hoping this year to get back into the school. We have 15 to 20 people that will tutor, so it's a good 3-to-1 ratio. It's a few different classes. We joined Get Out the Vote campaigns. We got in touch with the Census Bureau, and what we found out was that Hispanic people in particular in Norwalk do not fill out the census. Part of that is because of fear. Are they going to get caught? Are they going to get deported? Will they be questioned, et cetera, et cetera? And so we got involved in that. And well, I don't know that we made a huge difference, but collectively with all the other people that were involved, we made a difference. And so it's the education first to find out what's really needed, and then it's becoming active and doing the grunt work. That takes time and is, you don't get credit for and whatever, that can really make a difference.
Great. So I brought my phone up here. Full disclosure, friends, we are in a circle of trust. So really just wanting to be like, oh my goodness, look at the time. It's almost time for break, and we will be giving you break. Don't worry. I know that this is shut. You can still get out. We will still give you a break. But it also feels, right? I don't know if it feels like for you, like we just started this conversation, right? So we're going to kind of end on this question. And this is going to be kind of the tease for the small group discussion. But I will ask for all of our generous panelists that during the tabletops that each person will be a part of a tabletop. So if you have auxiliary questions that you'd like to ask, if you'd like to glean more from what they've already talked to, please take advantage of that within our tabletop. So there's that coming. But as our final question, kind of as a full group, with the limited time that we have left, what would be the main message that you would want this audience to take away? Whether it's guidance on someone who may be starting their equity journey, maybe early on in, or for those that may have been doing this work for some time. What would be your main message to this group?
I think something that's huge is the fact that the education doesn't end. As a community educator, I'm often entering spaces where kind of the energy I'm getting from people is they want me to be able to tell them what to do in every single situation they will ever be in and how to support every single person they will ever meet. It doesn't work like that. People are people. We all have individual needs and experiences. That's why self-reflection is a huge piece of the work, I think. You have to spend a lot of time thinking about yourself and your positionality and what that really means. And thinking about privileges, thinking about, again, the oppressions and the barriers that you face. Because, again, the secret there is that most of us have a mix of all of those things. That's kind of how that really works as well. And it's huge. Another huge thing that I think about a lot, especially because a lot of my understanding did kind of begin from an academic perspective. I'm a nerd, I enjoy thinking about all of that stuff. I also would much rather talk to real people. That was a lesson I learned from peers in college. Something we were doing at our meetings, I was in a lot of student activism, is we would be all excited, and a bunch of us who were in sexual identity and gender and women's studies, sociology, those classes, we'd always introduce ourselves with our majors. And we had our peers tell us, hey, we have lived experience in these things. It's just because we're not doing these, as our academic majors, doesn't mean our voices aren't important. So I would also very much advocate for that. Do not always get wrapped up in the academia of it all. I think it's really, really important also to listen to what people say. Again, just because someone doesn't have the language does not mean that those experiences aren't important.
My advice would be, especially for people of color, show up authentically yourself every single time. Take up space, take up room, do not shrink yourself for anyone. Especially for people of color, I think we have this thing where we code switch to feel comfortable in white spaces. Don't do it. Show up as yourself every single time and be heard, because you have a voice and your voice is very important.
To piggyback off of that statement, I'd say, recognizing the people in our community who are in this room and who aren't, that are creating organizations, creating initiatives, creating programs, and need the support and recognition as well. So I'd say, we need to, yes, be in this work together, but to also center other stories and communities who are trying to lift up themselves and their communities to do this work. There are a lot of great growing organizations in our community that need that support and recognition. The center that I run started in 2018, got its nonprofit status a year later out of the need for supporting the community in which we are located, South Norwalk, predominantly Black and Hispanic communities. And we're working to provide opportunities to our families and to our community. Again, the funding isn't always there for organizations like mine and others that I know are in this space, for various reasons. But we want to be able to partner with organizations that have access and opportunities so that we can lift up organizations like myself and other in this community. So I would just question our ability to really work in partnership. And I think something that the Social Justice Initiative is doing is sharing that power. And I know that's something that Norwalk ACTS is working to do. And so in these tabletop conversations, let's talk about how we can share that power and lift each other up to do this work.
So I think what comes to mind for me is obviously the work is central for everything that we do. But I think a piece of advice for those who are getting involved in whatever stage, this is hard work. and it's really complicated. And for anyone to not acknowledge that is really missing something. And some of the things that Bob has said, the lack of awareness out there, particularly among white people, it is a huge issue. So there's an educational piece, but this is not easy work. It is critically important, but it's not easy and it's very complicated.
All right, friends. So like I said, we were going to have a great conversation. And did we or did we? So as we're kind of going to make our way, I want to say out of this door, for if those that would like to use both doors. Okay, both doors. As we're embarking on break, really kind of consider what you've heard. So some of the large takeaways, obviously, is about finding your why. So we talk about our why a lot, and our whys are what are the deep pieces that lead us to action. So as we kind of proceed into the next piece of this conversation together, I hope that this is an opportunity for us to be able to identify what is our why. What are the actions that we plan on taking based on these conversations, as well as making these new connections, as Prema so eloquently mentioned. Like, where are the opportunities for us to be creative in our partnership? Where are the opportunities for us to be able, especially as people of color, to show up authentically as our whole selves? How are we incorporating lived experience as part of our work? How can we do that better? So really looking forward for this next piece of dialogue, but I'm going to give you 5 minutes to take a break, do a stretch, have some coffee, and see you back soon.
I know.
Thank you. It's a pattern. It's just. Anyway, thank you. Hi. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Ruben, nice to meet you. Cornerstone? Yeah, Cornerstone. Cornerstone. Is this? No, I think no. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Yeah, they are in high school. Yeah. Thank you.
So we're not doing.
Also, there was awesome job. That was a great conversation.
Yeah, we're gonna bring them in.
Yeah, I think we smell bad or something.
I think it was when everybody.
Yeah,
came in,
no, I know.
And you were presenting. You did a great job. I'm like, good job.
Okay, good.
All of
Thanks.
it.
I didn't write anything down this time. I was just going off the last few.
No, it was really, really good.
Okay, good.
Okay, this one.
Yeah, I think that's the better one.
Okay, yeah.
All right, friends. It's time.
If you can hear me, clap your hands. If you can hear me, clap your hands twice. If you can hear me, do 3 claps, 4 claps. Still works. All right, friends. All right, so as we get back, hope that quick break was restorative for all of you. So looking forward to being a part of this next part of the conversation. Hi, friends on Facebook. All right.
Problem when we give them away.
It always does. 5 minutes is too short. All right, friends. So I see that we have most back in the room. So I'm going to give direction on the next steps, and then hopefully you know what to do next. I know that there were some friends that were kind of standing the leaders. We want to make sure that everyone knows that there is a place at the table for you. There's an empty table up here. All right, I'll take advantage of the lull. All right. So hope that short break was good to all of you. So just as a reminder, our discussion goals for this next portion of our time together is around goal 1. You may have already done this as part of your break, but find someone new to connect with and to continue this dialogue after this meeting. So that is one goal. And then goal 2 is really around identifying an action that you'll take based on this discussion. So before we kind of get into the discussion portion, let's just go through kind of our common norms. So we want to make sure that our spaces are going to be intimate and safe. So as is our custom, these are our norms. So listen and to be open to different perspectives and experiences. Show respect and suspend judgment. Disagreement is an opportunity to expand our experiences and perspectives. Check your assumptions and assume positive intent. It's all about like that oops and ouch. Be purposeful and to the point. Please allow for other folks to take the floor and be able to share their experiences as well. And for those of us who are normally ready to speak, it may be an opportunity for us to allow for others to speak first. So step up if you're typically maybe someone that might be a little quieter, and step back for those of us who make sure that we get our point across. So with that, your discussion questions are on the table, but they'll also be up here as well. So kind of some key takeaways based on the panel discussion. We'd love for you to be able to talk a little bit more about what you gleaned from this brief conversation. Similar to the panel, if you would like to define race, equity, and social justice amongst your table, any lessons that you have personally learned as part of your own race equity journey. And we really want to concentrate, especially based on time, on that last question around what action will you take based on this discussion. So really looking forward to hearing on the other side of this how your discussions went. And if you have any other questions, we have backbone staff strategically sprinkled amongst each team, as well as our panelists. Okay. And then for those that are here at the bleachers, please feel free. Please, we encourage you to participate as part of these tabletop discussions. There are still chairs over here and at some other tables as well. So we will be back together at around 10 up. mid-morning. Fifteen seconds. Last words. All right, friends. So I know, me coming with that mic means that you're in the midst of a thought, and here I am to break it. But before we kind of convene, well, not convene, let you all go from this convening, just wanted to put back up the slide really around goal 2. So this is whomever would like to share can share. But goal 2, has anyone identified and would be willing to share what their future action will be? Oh, see? You guys are still like delving into the questions ahead of that, right? Yeah. So okay, so like let's turn it around. So like, what was something that someone said that maybe made you feel a little different, or that you had a reaction to, that you want to continue to think about? All right, Orlando.
Okay, I'm gonna address it. I am a community activist. I love the community, and something that I didn't know. Every time that we have this conversation, everything is kind of white and black, or black and white. And as a Hispanic, Latino individual, it's kind of we punching everybody into the same black and white. And that's why we probably still have these conversations, because we haven't found a way to be able to unify. And once again, I think Bob mentioned it, being colorblind and coming together with the same focus. And I think this is one of the first steps, and one of the steps to take. But it's not just to talk about it, it's moving into action. And I think that's what the purpose here is. That's all.
Absolutely. Yes, snaps to that. Yeah, Juan.
I wanna, it's kind of different, right? But one thing I said, okay. They want me to stand up, so I'm standing up. So, thank you for that, Orlando, because that's what we actually talked about at our table as well. But the first thing I mentioned was a little about frustration when thinking about the panel, right? So, out of 5 of the panel members, we talked about George Floyd, Trayvon Martin. We talked about, schools, minorities in schools, and so on and so forth. And one of the gentlemen I forgot his name, Bob, he talked about his one of his members and how, he's afraid to go outside at times. And can anyone say what all of the individuals have in common? Please, someone say it. I know someone knows. Even at our table. What do they all have in common? They're black men. And not one black man was in our panel. So when you think about these things, kind of like similar to what Orlando said, you have to look at the whole scope, right? Because if we're going to talk about the people that's mostly affected by these issues and these systems, we have to continue to invite them to the table, let them share this, especially in a space like this. Like, we have to be in spaces, and it's some well-qualified men that could be at these, tables. We are a minority. Look at how many black men here. It's a couple of us, right? So we need to be at these spaces for Orlando as well, right? She brought up a good point about different shades and the languages in Norwalk, right? How many languages was it? Spoken language, 54 different languages. So I think we need to really start talking about those things and having those conversations as well.
Thanks, Dawn. All right. Any last? I know that there are those that may not necessarily want the mic. But I hope that this is an opportunity for us to not only have this conversation here, but for us to continue to have conversations. So I know that there are core team members that are here in the room, and I know that we will continue to kind of have this dialogue as far as how do we continue to bring folks together to have these critical conversations. How do we really elevate voices, especially of Black men, as part of this conversation, as well as really talking to the Hispanic and Latinx community that is vastly here. So wanted to really thank you all. Also, as part of kind of the resources that are available, more will be coming electronically, but we are looking to at least have the follow-up conversation to this is going to be around the resource that may be at your table already around white dominant culture or something else. So really looking forward to kind of reconvening a group of folks who would like to kind of talk about this and to continue in a similar conversation, in addition to kind of growing dialogue moving forward. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Jennifer.
Thanks, me. Wonderful conversation. Appreciate my table. Great discussion this morning. So I know in the last few minutes, just wanted to, whoops, wrong way. Okay. Highlight, if you haven't yet done the partnership survey, this is our second annual, and it really helps us compare year to year how we are doing and moving the needle on some of the things that we talked about just this morning. So it only takes a couple minutes. If you haven't done it already, please do. We're going to be closing it out soon. Thanks to those who already have done it. And if you haven't, just please go back today and do it when you get back home or to the office. If you're not signed up for our newsletters, hopefully you're enjoying. I know there are a lot, but we're trying to do a monthly and just get it all in one fell swoop. So, and Emily's been doing a great job, or is Emily back in the room? Thank you on those newsletters. We will be updating our MOA as kind of the third part of our strategic plan in the coming year, but please make sure that you have signed up. If you haven't already, we are a non-fee kind of member group, but we do ask you to sign the MOA to agree to the principles, many of which we just talked about this morning. And if you're not in one of the working groups that was mentioned in the strategic plan, early childhood, the social emotional health at a school or college of workforce, it's all hands on deck. We can't do this work with just the traditional 20% of the people doing 80% of the work. It really requires everybody to fully engage. And so you'll see here and on our newsletters and others, some of our upcoming meetings, we've really tightened up and trying to publish a calendar of all the initiative meetings for the year to come, so you can make sure that you have those planned. I already mentioned the policy convening is our next quarterly convening in December, which will be here, I'm sure, before we know it. Also want to give a special shout out to, I saw March here, NEF, Norwalk Education Foundation, and Norwalk Public Schools is doing a screening of screenagers tomorrow, which if you haven't seen that, especially if you're a parent, like I am, struggling daily, sometimes hourly, sometimes by the minute with my freshman and her phone technology use. It's a really important conversation, so encourage caregivers, parents to attend, bring your youth with you, and continue to have the conversation. A couple just other things I wanted to mention. the out-of-school time portal, we have these bookmarks that were just printed, and we're giving them at the open houses to the Norwalk Public Schools. We'll put them in the library, in the Welcome Center. If you want some, if you have a space where you have a lot of traffic, maybe, I don't know if Ken's still here from Norwalk Community Health Center or other places. This is, if you don't know, it's a QR code which brings you up to a portal that has collated all the opportunities for out-of-school time activities for youth in the city, and our data team, particularly Ray and others, have just done a great job in making this a one-stop shop for families to find opportunities for their children in the community. And we're hoping that this is a model we can replicate with other things such as, college and workforce training opportunities in the future. So please help us spread the word about that. Lots of trainings and things to come in the coming months. I want to shout out to Cadence. They did a fantastic job with LGBTQ plus 101 training that the Backbone team all participated in. Was that like a month or two ago? And so highly, highly recommend, if you dig into our SEH initiative work plan, you will see that we have a massive crisis in suicidal ideation and mental health in this community and every community in the country. But when we talk about disaggregating data, which is part of our tabletop discussion, and really looking at most vulnerable populations, our LGBTQ plus population, and Orlando spoke to, especially those who identify as Latinx, are even most vulnerable when you start looking at cross sections. Please make sure that you and your staff and the people that you are with, or your organizations, communities that you work with, are fully equipped and trained to recognize the unique needs of the LGBTQ plus population. And then also wanted to just a little preview, Prema mentioned it in her remarks on the panel, that it's really, I'm a FCA alumni, worked there proudly for 15 or something years, but there's a lot of small organizations doing really great work in this community. DeWan's a great example of that, Prema's a great example of that, there's so many others, and I've always said that Norwalk ACTS, the Backbone team, is here in service to support the smaller groups that are doing the work to help provide the data, the training, the resource, access to resources, etc. So Kate Ritter couldn't be with us this morning, she had personal matter, but she and I have been talking about how we can really do some support in a structured way for some of the smaller groups. So you'll please keep an ear out, because we will be probably organizing a meeting to talk in more detail about how we can do that and what might be helpful for all of you. So did I get into everything? Any stuff? Okay. I just, last thing, want to ask the Backbone team to stand up, please, and just give a shout out to all of them. Melina, MJ, Jesse, Brandon, Emily, Leah, Barbara out at the front table, holding it down. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in December, if not before. Thank you.
I think Ken did leave. So from the health center, do we have a lot of bookmarks?
Ask Barbara, I don't know, do we bring, whatever we have out front, ask her, but just give her your email, and we'll make Annalena